Welcome to The Aftermath, a podcast that rips the Band-Aid off the collective scars of divorce, custody battles, and the trauma of family drama. Kindra Reiber and Mick Smith pull back the curtain and explore stories that put the heart-wrenching puzzle pieces together with inspiring stories, notable experts, and actionable tips. Let the healing begin. Well, welcome once again. This is Mick, the Doctor of Digital, and Kindra, our legislative advocate. And today we have a special guest. And so, how are you today, Kindra?
I am absolutely wonderful. Mick, we were just talking a little bit offline how the weather changes. And you remember when I was really cold and now it's going to be 90 here. So super excited to be in Ohio.
Yeah, but Ohio is a great state, so we can't complain, right? It's a good place.
Yes, it is. It is wonderful. I am very excited about our guest too.
Really? Well, I have to say this. I mean, this is going to introduce the guest, but this is full disclosure because the person we have on today is my best friend, and I've known him for a long, long time. And actually, when there was, I know it's hard to believe, but I actually was a young person at one time, and I've known him all that time. So it's been a lot of years that we've been together, and I'm looking forward to all the things that he has to share because I know a lot of it, but it's going to be new to the audience and maybe new to you, Kendra, as well. So, with that as introduction, we have Mike Todrzak, and he is joining us from California, so another weather-related state. How you doing today, Mike?
Hey, pretty good, Mick. How are you today?
We're doing great, and we're very excited about having you on the program today. So, a lot of people would like to know just a little bit about your background, other than the fact that you're my best friend. But what can you
Yeah.
tell us about yourself in terms of background? Who are you?
Yeah, sure. But before I do, I just gotta, kudos to you guys and what you're doing, how you're doing it. I think you're the dynamic duo. I love duo. I love watching how you interact and how you are so smart with your questions and empathetic in every way. And it's just wonderful. And I say that not because you're my best friend, Kindra. I think it's our first time meeting. It's just a God thing to me. What a beautiful thing you're doing and how beautiful you guys do it. So really blessed to be here today. Anyway,
We're
so
excited to have you too, Mike, just because you're our first story that we've ever had on, right, Mick?
yeah,
Yes, I think so. So, maybe the best too. The first is always the best. That's what we
Right.
say sometimes.
all right. Don't oversell me. Um, yeah. So, I'm an old dude like Mick, but a little bit younger, so I still got a little more spunk, not what
Oh, Mick, I think he's calling you out there. You don't have
Ouch.
spunk anymore.
Ouch. Ooh, that hurts.
no. But the thing with Mick is he can remember, I can. So if I get stuck, feel free to nudge me, Mick. Uh, he takes care of himself. Sugar is my other blood, so I can't help it. It's the way it is. But anyway, so I've lived a really interesting life and too long of a story to do that. But what connects us today is the tragedy of losing my little girl who will be 8. I can't believe it in July. And it'll be 6 years now that I've had to endure and allow God to process, create the process for me to get free of all of the entanglement. I couldn't have done this show a month ago, and he's written a book. He sent me the first few chapters back in the day, and then he sent me the book, and I just wasn't able to read it. I still need to read it. I feel ready to read it, but it just brings back all of that horror of being in courtrooms and having, a government agency condone what, in my mind, and I think most people's mind, is kidnapping. There's no other way to describe it because that's how it feels to me. I came from a family of 6 siblings, a pretty large, Catholic background family, and this is so foreign to me. I am so grateful my mother and father are in heaven and didn't have to witness this because it would just kill them. And so I just, you know, have been processing. my background or how God designed me is kind of an organic curiosity about Him. My following Him began with being raised Catholic, and it was pretty early on that my family recognized that he's different. So I'll never
Aren't we
forget my
all?
own.
You're
I'll
not
never
alone. Aren't we all?
forget my own father who once told me when I was, I don't know, probably mid 20s or so, I really don't know how to talk to you because my value system was always spiritually based. And so, my story is really about my internal story of how God has helped me couch this that has an eternal value as opposed to trying to absorb the day to day and the miracles that have happened along the way, most of which is coming to a closer relationship with him, um, screaming and cracking for everything within me. Isn't there a better way than this? Is this, it doesn't take much to figure out that we all, doesn't matter if you've been through this, we're all going through some fire. And it apparently the folks that seek him are going to travel down, not the same road Jesus did, but he's going to allow this tragedy, this pain to make you into the original version of who he designed you to be in the first place. And that's how I feel. So it's kind of a combination of growing spiritually, creating the man in me, and completely letting go of religion and hanging on for dear life to Jesus every day to get out of bed and to think and to cope with this. I I get up at least an hour and a half early every day and I spend quiet time, and that's grown from 20 minutes to an hour and a half, and it's not long enough, and I keep trying to extend it. And because you're East Coast, Kindra, I just took a new job where I have to start work at 5 a.m. here. They're 3 hours ahead. So I'm up at 3:30. And lately it's been 3 o'clock. And then I work till about 2 o'clock, my time, which is 5 o'clock there. And then I go right into my other life, which has been challenging in a good way. Taking care of my special needs, now 19-year-old daughter, who also was dramatically impacted by losing her little sister and her stepmom. And so 2 years, this event happened in 2017, 7 days before the little girl was gonna have her second birthday party. And so 2 years later in 2019, my 19-year-old daughter lost her mother to cancer. And it was a kind of a quick thing that came up. Been a smoker her whole life since 14, so it wasn't, surprised that it was cancer, but it just came on her so quickly, and within 4 months, actually, it wasn't even that long, excuse me. Again, Mick be my brain, but I think it was within 6 weeks from the actual diagnosis, she passed away. And,
Wow.
she had a loss on top of a loss. Her mom had a relationship that produced a younger brother for my 19-year-old, try not to use their names. But so that father pretty much took her brother and doesn't allow anybody to see him. So she's lost more than I have in this time. She
You know
was
what? I'm
very
gonna end in just a second, Mike. You've
sure.
made a lot of good points I wanna go back on, and Mick and I are very good at trying to go back on points. First of all, I think it's absolutely amazing that you're taking care of your stepdaughter and taking that responsibility, because I know, being fully transparent, as Mick and I have been through this too, that's extremely hard to have one daughter in your life, but not the other.
Yeah, and
So
she's my natural daughter.
oh, she is
She
your natural. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was
Sorry.
yeah, she
She's lost her stepmom. That's what you said.
no, she lost her natural mom. Her stepmom is who took off with my little girl, her little
Well, I
sister.
guess that's what I'm calling lost too, right? She lost another mom
Yeah,
figure in her life,
yeah,
right?
I'm sorry.
Um,
I didn't
so her
yeah,
regular mom to cancer and then her stepmom to alienation, really, or
correct.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So first of all, kudos to you for that. Kudos to you for sharing your story because I know that takes a lot of guts. That's really hard. But you mentioned that a month ago you couldn't have shared your story. What changed in that month?
Freeing up, you know, it's been an incremental, inch by inch journey for me to get past the heartache. And I'm not completely there, and nor probably will I ever be, but God's using it. I know He is to help other people. Being on this program is a privilege because hopefully, like you guys are trying to do, it reaches somebody where they live at. We're all designed differently. I have kind of, as I've, 64 now, I've traveled through life realizing that some of us get a little extra dose of faith that we didn't ask for. It just is there, and God's always been a number one interest to me. I'm not saying there's no way I'm a saint. Mick will attest to that as well. But this journey was extremely hard to endure, and there was many times when I just wanted to die. I wasn't suicidal. I was just wanting to die because I found no way out. And then, if you're familiar with the special needs life, my daughter is the most beautiful, interesting person in the world. And have learned more about how to negotiate life because she doesn't have the same gifts everybody else does. She can't read. She's dyslexic so terribly bad that she can't read. She has She has speech apraxia. That was the first diagnosis. So she's hard to understand and has endured years of speech therapy. And she just graduated from her high school, which I've homeschooled her for the last 4 years. And, she was valedictorian, and, because she just loves learning. And so, and on top of that, at 11 and a half, she was diagnosed as severely autistic, which that's a whole nother story how that was missed because we took her to all kinds of doctors. And, then God led us to it's a professor at the University of Fresno State that had to bring a doctor up from Sacramento. And that doctor's like, yeah, she's severely autistic. So having the ABA treatment, came late. And I was so upset about it. I started a nonprofit and created a special needs program at the Christian elementary school she went to. So I'm not a standby kind of person. I like to get involved and roll up my sleeves and do my part. But it's been a challenge because how she gets relief from her loss is different, and becoming sensitized and learning her and letting her teach me. God's had to guide me through that. And the thing about my daughter is that she has an organic connection that her mother and I recognized when she was a little girl, talking to somebody, looking out the window as we're driving her around. And we quickly learned as she grew, she would just know things before they happened. Now I've shared this with other special needs parents, and they start laughing immediately and say, "Yeah." So see, God doesn't leave these these children without his guidance.
Yeah,
And,
great.
it gives me chills to talk about because, I could name some stories, but, I know we don't have forever, but it's just I wish I had that. It's just organic.
God blesses us in different ways, right? And I
Yeah,
truly
he
do
does.
believe those that have physical handicaps that makes them different than us, they have special, unique qualities that we don't have. And
Yeah,
so I truly do believe that. So I think that's absolutely amazing. And I think that's how God's probably, brought that center of your life. And be fully transparent. That is something I've struggled with is my faith in going through this. And so I give you again a kudos to staying faithful because it is so hard in this situation to, blame God, blame him for what's going on and taking our kids away, even though we know he doesn't do it, right? Trying to figure out the why this is happening.
yeah,
So I give you credit. And then one other thing I wanted to go back on was you mentioned that your parents are in heaven and it would have killed them to see this happening.
yeah,
And, you know, I still have my parents around. I'm blessed to still have them around. And it is truly killing them. And we went through the court system and now we've dropped it in the court. I gave up, right? 4 years trying to
mm,
fight it in court, getting nowhere.
yep.
So tell me why you think, because I think everybody kind of thinks that when you are alienated, it's just you, but it's actually a whole family side of the family that is alienated. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, into your 4-year s battle, I did about 3.5, and I hired and fired 3 different attorneys along the way, and still am in debt, and, you know, they just give you enough hope that you keep paying them. And then I finally figured out that this is just a sick game. They get
Agreed.
together they get together and have lunch and cut deals on your back.
Yes,
Um, I
agreed.
I I won
Thanks
some
for
unique
grace.
things. I say I won some unique things, but that's how they tried to make me feel better,
Yep.
which is I have FaceTime with my daughter 5 days a week and have been doing that since she was 2.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it absolutely drives her mother out of her mind. And then she has to bring her hair to me 3 to 4 times. We do even years for Thanksgiving, but she's here for a week for Thanksgiving, every Easter, and Easter's my favorite holy day. And summer break has gone from 2 weeks, now it's 3 weeks, it'll go up to 6 weeks. The concern there is by the time that happens, she'll be a teenager saying, "Hey, dad, I joined the cheer squad. I can't do that," or whatever. So,
No, that's exactly where I'm at, right? And they get in their head too. My kids are old enough that it's in their head. So now when they say they don't wanna come,
yeah,
nobody can technically force them, and they don't wanna come not because they don't wanna see me, but because they're afraid of what would happen if they do come, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
repercussions on that end. And so they do that's a whole different phase. But anyways,
yeah,
let's go
it is.
back. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. I mean, the secret to, again, the Lord walking me through stuff is I don't do anything that puts my daughter in the middle of the manipulation and the controlling that happens with her. So to answer your question, which is a great question, you guys always ask the really good questions. Um, s- my wife was the first woman that came into my life that my mother actually accepted at face value and hugged her immediately. When all this went down, there wasn't one person. I have a large family. I probably got 20,000 nieces and nephews all spread out through the United States. There wasn't one person who could believe that this happened.
Yeah.
And so she's quite a bit younger than me. And, I mean, we had that talk like, what the heck are you talking about? And there was no desire to ever have children. That wasn't in the plan. I was a grandfather. I am a grandfather. And so, it was just one of those, okay, this is cool. So I'll ride out with a young, beautiful woman on my arm.
Sure.
Uh, and so, yeah. So, you know, it, it just, I, referring to my mother, I mean, she was famous for hitting my dad in the arm when any of us needed help and saying, Bob, help him, whatever. And I could just picture her making his arm black and blue. And, he wasn't he wasn't that way at all. I had a son who passed away at 37 through a drug overdose who, disowned me via court with his mom when he was like 6, 7 years old or something. And, you know, he that's a whole 'nother story. So I've gone through, this before, but, it's just amazing, how blessed I am to have a family that will get in get behind me. Oh, my dad's thought was, "If you did that to me, I'd tell you that's it. Don't ever come." So, because I fought and eventually was able to get him back, but, it's just it just seems to be part of my life. Nick and I commiserate together on things where, we feel like we're living right, we're good people, we succeed at most things we try, but we never seem to get to the promised land. But what I've learned through this is that we're already living in the promised land. The relationship with God is paramount, and it's the only place I want to be right now. Another thing that my older daughter, suffers from is isolation. It's an organic isolation. She lost her only friend that she had since third grade. When COVID happened, all of a sudden, she started going to high school too. And, that happens. And I try to explain that. But when it's your only friend and your family's not exactly coming around you the way you would want them to, it's, I'm living that life and it's a struggle. And it's really one thing on top of another. So, you know, I don't know if I'm lost in my story because there's so much to share, but, bear with me and Mick, jump in anytime and get me back on track. But hope I'm answering your questions. This tragedy, as I call it, it's a gift that keeps on giving because I still am interacting with her mom to the best of my ability. And we had a last summer I had cause to call CPS, and I noticed bruises a few months prior to that over Christmas break on her forearm. And when I questioned her mother about it in person, she said, "Oh, she's," it was her fiance at the time. They're married now. "Oh, well, he believes in roughing kids up to toughen them up." So then a few weeks go by and it's summer break and I'm on FaceTime and has bruises from here, here, and here. And when I asked my daughter where that came from, she didn't know. And when I questioned her mother on it, she completely shut down. And I said, "Well, is this your fiance's doing?" And it's not like my daughter's very sharp, very smart. She's mini me spiritually, and she's a singer naturally. She's just, just unbelievably similar, and she's not into lying or any of that at all. And so, at that point, and Mick helped me walk through this, I had sent pictures to my sister, who's a retired emergency room nurse. Her daughter is now a doctor's assistant, and she forwarded them to a friend who's a detective, Los Angeles detective. And that woman detective said, "I would have had somebody arrested already." And so that person offered and did call the Montana police and spoke with the sheriff out there. And they live in a really tiny, tiny town. And he quickly told me, he called me after he spoke with her, and said, "Unfortunately, our state's not like California. CPS has to call us in." Well, I had already called CPS. But what was troubling there was around 2 years ago, I was asked by my ex-wife if I would help her get a passport to move to Canada. And I said, "Excuse me? I lost my daughter in the United States of America, and you think I'm gonna sign off? And she knows people all over the world." And I said, "That could be the last time." I said, "No." Well, where they live now is literally 30 minutes from the border, and she just asked me again a week ago if I would sign off, and I said, "No," and I don't even know why you keep asking. So apparently, the boyfriend who's now the husband comes from Canada, and
Interesting, right?
so yeah, and when the initial conversation happened, they were living in Georgia, where she ran away to with my baby to live with her parents. So, it's pretty wicked, evil stuff, and it continues, it's the gift that keeps on giving, I tell people. And so there's a constant need for me to go to the Lord and to get his input. And when I say his input, there's a scripture. I'm terrible at memorizing, but if you ask him for wisdom, he'll give it to you. And he gives that freely. And so that's how I live my life. I'm using that in my work. Just like he is real. And when I feel that nudge to do something, I don't hesitate anymore. I just do it. It may not make sense to me, but if I know his nudge now. And so to answer your question about this journey and the alienation and how it affects people around you, now people around me, family members, are like, something's different about Mike, and they can't put their finger on it, but I'm at peace, but I still have an aching heart. And
That's a
it
great way to explain it.
and
I
and you still, and when I get kicked in the heart, he continues to provide a way for me to couch it, or he couches it for me. So the thought is, keep an eternal focus. This isn't it. We're going somewhere else. Mick's favorite saying and helps me out is, we're not from here. And that's the absolute truth. There's no perfection here. It's a broken world. There's not supposed to be. And the trouble that we go through, like I mentioned before, is refining us and to receive a forever love and joyful essence and presence in the Lord. So I wanted to share a couple things. These are different and happen different times. That one of the things I realized was, in not putting my little girl in the middle, was, the story about S- Mick helped me with the guy, the wise guy, Sam, not Samson. Who's the wise person in the Bible?
Solomon.
Solomon, you
You
know,
like me, Mike, I'm glad. I cannot memorize anything in there, but I do love reading the stories, but I cannot regurgitate where it's at or
yeah,
what verse it is.
yeah, I'm getting better, but I'm trying to commit stuff to memory. But again, I'm lacking in that. Probably too much sugar. I don't know. But so Solomon was faced with, I think she was a queen who stole her helper's baby.
Yep.
And he said, "Okay, here's the solution. We'll cut the baby in half."
Mhm.
And so the real mother said, "Oh, no, no, she can have her." And only a real mother would do that. And so it taught me that
Mm.
I need to love great gosh, I need to love my baby enough to know that God's taking care of her. And there's gotta be a purpose that I don't get or understand, and a life for her and a reason for her existence that's gonna include having to have gone through being without me. And I have to trust him. And
Oh,
the thing that's not that the Lord's helped me realize not that long ago is that he knows how it feels to lose a child,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
He had to give his son up. He gave his life up willingly. So he knows he's had every heartbreak that I've had and then some, all for a purpose of saving us from our sins and giving us an eternal life that don't we don't deserve. It's just too mind-boggling, and I can't wait to sit down with him when I get up there and have a good chat.
Ditto. Ditto.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up that story with Solomon, and how, you know, the real mother just said, no, take the whole baby. Let's not cut it in half, right?
Yeah.
Just let it, because I think that's really hard for people outside of our world to understand that sometimes the best thing and the best way I can be the best mother is to walk away right now, is to have separation, is to, not create more drama by getting in the middle. And like you said, not putting them in the middle, right? Just,
Yeah.
and that's extremely hard for people to get to that
Yeah.
place. But just, I love how you said you're at peace with an aching heart.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the question, and maybe since you're wise and you have an insight
Hmm. Wow.
faithfully, maybe you
Hey,
can answer
Hey, Mick, I'm wise.
the question that, all of us ask, Mick and I have talked about it too,
Yeah.
is why? If your ex did not want any kids and you had kids, why do they do this? What drives them to do this? Why do you think your ex did this to you and continues to do it to you, right? Is now trying to go out of country and take her completely away. Any visitation and, whether it's 3 weeks or 6 weeks during the summer or whatever, any visitation, right? Just
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. The the short answer is that hurt people hurt people.
Mm,
So there's a story in her life that she shared, and I was instrumental in assisting in a small way with her facing it. But there was some stuff that happened to her very early in her life that created a lot of pain and issues. And then she also has, when I was married to her, she really didn't have a great relationship with her own mom. And right now, I mean, I'm seeing everything she complained about, the controlling, the absolute, demand for perfection from her, she's doing to our little girl. And it's like, you know, these were all the things that you told me you just never want to be like, and then you're doing it. So, you know, she claims to be a Christian. She did when we were married, and there's a button. However, this wasn't that long ago. It was last year sometime. She called me. She never calls me. And she says, I think I received the Holy Spirit. And I go, you think? And she goes, it's just like how you explained it to me when we were married. I've never had such a sense of peace and calm. And we talked for another hour and a half. Now, mind you, she's engaged to this guy's supposed to be a committed Christian. They moved to where they moved to start a ministry, all these things. But she's calling me. And it was just pretty crazy. So that gives me hope. And every once in a while, I start really, believing that thing God's moving in her heart. And the other thing too is, how we're supposed to love our enemies and do good to them. I finally realized again about a couple years ago that I couldn't forgive her without asking God to give me the forgiveness. And he did immediately. And as soon as I asked him, my heart melted, the anger went away, and totally forgave her. And as the years have gone on, he reminds me because I still am this dad who desires to be my daughter's dad
right, to
in a
be a
way
dad,
that,
right.
and so that's never gonna go away. That's how he built us. But and I tell him it all the time, Lord, I'm never gonna not ask you to bring her back. I accept that this is what's happened, and I know that you're gonna make something fantastic out of it. But in the meantime, I'm gonna keep asking. But it was remarkable that I had to ask him for forgiveness. So if you ask him for it, he'll give it to you. And then, my focus wasn't on the nasty part of her. It was more on, I developed a heart of sorrow. I feel
Oh
sorry
my
for her.
gosh. So
but
you're speaking to me.
okay.
Seriously, this is
Well,
and anybody that's listening, this is so true. I went through the same thing, Mike. And I'm not making this up.
no,
I held a lot of anger in for a long time. I had to ask God to give me the forgiveness, and I forgave
yeah,
because when you hold in that anger, you're doing nothing but hurting yourself,
true.
right?
Yeah,
And you're right. And once you forgive, then you feel sorry for them. You feel
yeah,
sorry for where they're at in their life,
yeah,
and you do. And
yeah,
I cannot. You're explaining it to a T of what happened to me too. I hold no more anger. I
yeah.
don't. It's
It's
released. I feel sorrow, and I pray for
yeah.
him.
That's that's what I do too. Psychologists will tell you that you forgive people to help yourself. God, there's just spiritual, laws that happen, but I'm connected to the Lord and he's saying to do that. And he did it on the cross while he hung. So, you know, to to not imitate him in the most real way and feel his love. That's where the love came from to love her. I mean, I didn't fall in love with somebody who's not that person too, but she's surrounded with all of the hurt that she's gone through. And I hope she gets to the end of that road. And I've told her to her face, I said, I don't expect you'll ever give me an apology, but I'm praying someday you'll at least say you're sorry. And it was just a blank stare, like, yeah, that's never going to happen, dude. But, you know, the fact
We
is,
should always hope for that, right? We can
I mean, yeah, I
always
mean,
hope
just
for that.
it'd be nice to acknowledge that that's my daughter and my input would have been valuable. So
Yes.
now she's, you know, got some guy I don't even know. I asked many times, can I meet him? Can we, you know, this is a very important step if you're getting remarried and I need to know who this character is. And of course that never happened. And then the next thing I know, I'm calling CPS because I think he's hurting my daughter. And I still believe that he did because there was no flat out denial. It just was, you know, it's so crazy, but it's
You
because
know what?
God
Everybody
loves me through that. When I let go of my anger to her and forgave her, he also replaced all of that negative stuff I was carrying with a love for her. I can't even claim that I'm loving her. It's flowing through. So I don't do things unless he nudges, and he does. And I'll send her, in fact, right before she got married, I sent her a devotional that had everything to do with, are you prepared? Do you really know, who you're engaged to? And she thanked me. She emailed me and said, this is perfect. So that told me, well, you're on the fence, but you have a date set and you're not that sure. So, I expect that it's probably will run out of juice, down the road.
You know,
Not that
you
I
bring up
wish
a
her.
good point, Mike, is
What's that?
you bring up a good point,
Yeah,
is how we are fighting for our kids, and that looks different at different stages, and we're gonna call
sure.
them seasons through this, right?
Yeah,
Seasons through this alienation, which years, right?
yeah,
So sometimes you have to not put them in the middle, and that's a way to fight for them,
yep,
right? Sometimes fighting for them because everybody goes to the court thing, right? Everybody goes to it's automatically court. We've all learned that's not solving anything.
nope,
Sometimes it's rekindling some type of relationship with the
mm,
ex,
yep,
right? Sometimes it's sticking up for our sons or daughters that might be getting physically abused as well as emotionally abused and taking that step to protect them.
right.
So it could look different in each stages, right? I mean,
Sure.
that's what we're saying.
Totally. Totally. My last attorney told me after all was said and done, I hate to say I gave up, but I just recognized what you did. It's like, this is, fruitless and it's an absolute joke. It's a travesty. And I'm so proud of you for getting after the legislative end of things because it should just be across the country. It's automatic. You don't get to just take off and not come back.
Mhm.
And I was told by every one of these attorneys, the three, I would have went to jail within hours. if
Yep.
I do that,
Yep.
but nothing happened there. And the last one told me, she goes, "I know you think." She had went and visited her mother in Georgia about 3 months before she took off, and I figured they planned this thing because of the way how she created drama between us and
Mhm.
then took off. And so she said, "Yeah, you were a baby daddy from the get-go." Our marriage was 3.5 years long before she pulled this. And, she just and it just was just like getting kicked in the gut again because, I mean, I could accept, like, maybe you just realized you didn't wanna do this. I don't know, all your hurt, your control stuff, but to say from the get-go, well, how did she know that?
Mhm.
The second attorney told me the same thing, but not that length of time, but that, they go to lunch, and of course, they're sharing us what happened. She planned it from the get-go. What are you talking about? So, I mean, it's just another hit where you're like, "Wow, who was this person that I was so in love with? What's wrong with me that
Yeah,
I couldn't
that
see
is
that?"
true,
It's so
right?
crazy. Makes you nuts.
It
So,
does. I wanna one more thing you said that I wanna draw attention to is you said you feel like you're giving up when you stop the court proceedings. I felt like that.
yeah,
Mick, I don't know if you felt like that, but you're not giving up. You're fighting different and you're
yeah,
choosing to fight different. It's
yeah,
it's not because there's the court side, but there's also the psychological side when dealing with someone that is doing this, right?
yeah, yep,
And you have to fight a different fight, and you now have to educate yourself and become a psychologist, right? First you were a lawyer,
yeah,
now
yeah,
you're a psychologist,
right,
but
right,
you're fighting different. It's not that you're giving up, and everybody sees that from the outside as giving up, and then I had to stop saying that
yeah,
so that I felt that I wasn't giving up. So I had to start telling myself, "I'm just fighting differently." So you just need to
yeah.
work differently.
Yeah, and God's fighting for me now. I
Yes.
surrender I have surrendered to him with complete confidence that because he's helped me see the bigger picture, that this is not heaven,
Mhm,
was never meant to be, and everybody goes through fire.
mhm.
Everybody. Some more than others, but who are we to really judge that? We don't know.
Yeah.
But this is mine, and so I'm embracing it, knowing and having full confidence that my little girl is gonna come out exactly how he designed her to be, in
Yep,
spite of all this nonsense.
yep,
And then how I handled it, hopefully I I'm not I don't like talking like it, but, the reward will be that he manifested in me the person he designed me to be.
yep,
As we get older, we have 2 choices. We can put on a mask and become completely shut off and angry and hard-hearted and pretend. I'm completely the opposite. The values that I've taken away from this to be transparent, I've been in sales my whole life, and I realized, like, what they're buying is me, and the more I engage with people at a human being level, the more I sell to them because they just are like me. They're afraid of every day. They don't know what they're doing all the time, and I do, I give good service. I don't lie about anything, and, so thing things like that where they just people recognize, and then I start hearing about their heartache,
mm,
you know? I It's just amazing how God provided some really important men in my life who are in the industry I'm in, who helped me get through it, and they all started as total strangers and customers, but they recognized the brokenness.
And I'd interject here too a little
Yeah,
bit because you go through some of this phases, and that's what I think is really interesting. I think you can help people with giving some tips because I tell you, Kindra, this is what we thought of when this incident first happened, and Mike can verify this. So what are we going to do? It's like, well, we're getting in the car, we're getting in a plane, we're jumping over there, we're getting the kid, and that was
yeah,
really, that's our first reaction, and that's the gut level reaction. So
yeah,
I'm just being honest. Yeah, we talked about it. Go, well,
yeah,
that would not be the best thing to do.
mhm,
And so one of the points that Mike made was, of course, you take a step back because anytime that you're putting the child or children in that emotional state is not good. And that's what is the check upon yourself. And that's every time you have to say, am I causing more emotional harm and trauma? And that is the step back. And that's why I said in my situation, yeah, I had the mom pull up the door. Child gets in the car, she goes down 3 doors down, so I could literally see my daughter, but I couldn't father my daughter, and, that's a really difficult place to be
Yeah.
because, yeah, sure enough, I wanted to walk down there and pick the kid up, so that's not the best thing, so I think one of the things you have to think about, and that was the stance of taking a step back. You're not giving up, but you have to change your strategy based on the conditions on the ground. I mean, it's kind of like the analogy is warfare, but how do you navigate your way through a situation which is extraordinarily difficult and extraordinarily emotional by everybody?
Mhm.
And providing some tips, I think, would be really helpful because essentially you become a father that's in the song that you had written about this very situation, your father through a cell phone. So maybe you can tell people a little bit about that and how you navigate the situation of having a child that you are estranged from and have to try to contact through a cell phone.
It's very simple. Invite God into the equation, and He will show up and He will guide you. You guys have probably all discerned I'm not really the smartest guy in the classroom. I'm just a guy who got really broken enough to realize that my way through this is to call on God, and I do. And when I say I need that quiet time every day with Him, I need that quiet time. I don't vary from it at all, and I don't want to. It's my time to get instruction for the day. If there's an issue, like, it cost me calling CPS, believe me. There was a price to pay, and it continues. There was further alienation. I just had a conversation yesterday. My older daughter wants to jump on a plane and fly down to Southern California to San Diego and see her aunts by herself. So she asked my little girl, "Hey, have you ever been on a plane by yourself?" And immediately my little girl said, "Yeah." And then she looked over, and I know her mom was right there, and she changed the subject and started talking about something in depth immediately. So she was signaled, like, "Don't go there," because I wouldn't approve that. When you were on a plane? So, I'll see her in a few weeks, but I'm not gonna ask her because that puts her in the middle. So I'm not
Mhm.
gonna try to guard her because she's trained to tell mom everything. Well, dad asked me and, I didn't tell him. And so she's being taught how to be, subversive and, she's just an innocent, victim of somebody else's manipulation.
Yep,
But, you
it
know,
is.
I know, I mean, yeah, the way she just came right out. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so sad. And it's just crazy. But
Um,
that's what I would say, Mick, to answer your question. This was it's not really my concern, but I prayed about this because, I've obviously could probably match stories with anybody who's gone through this with all of the struggle and all that stuff. But, I kind of want a shortcut to the what helped me was really leaning into God. And He hasn't failed me yet. And I don't make moves unless He nudges me to make those moves, no matter how hard. There was a part of me, I was getting support to call, and there was a part of me going, "I don't want to because I know what'll happen." But I had to do the right thing because at least now there's a record. And so if I ever see that kind of stuff again, I'm gonna press harder than I did. I'll probably get on a plane and fly to wherever they're at and get with local people, to demand they do something about it. I just
so
It's
I
crazy.
think with that and what Mick was saying too, though, we get a little off track. We want to react with our gut, and if we don't step back, we react.
Yep.
I want to let listeners know it's okay to make mistakes. We've all made mistakes here on this call, right? I mean,
Yep.
we've all made mistakes. Give yourself some grace. You still have time to fix it, right? You can do it differently next time. We only fail forward, right? John
That's
Maxwell, fail forward,
yeah. Yeah.
right? That's the only way we can learn.
Yep.
How about when we're on the subject of tips? How do you handle it? You had mentioned a while back in your story. How do you handle it when you have people or family members that don't understand what is going on? How do you answer that question? I think Mick brings this up in every podcast we
Yeah.
do. So I'm laughing because I know this is his question, but how do you handle that? It's so hard to explain it to people and,
Well, it's
you know,
it's d it's a double barrel life for me because they don't understand what it takes to be a single father of, you know, I hate the labels, but special needs child. There's just no way to explain it. I belong to an online support group headed by a young pastor and his wife that have two young men who are autistic. And there's about 25, 30 of us, but nobody has time to jump on a Zoom and try to share like they tried to do. They were going to pull the plug on it. And I said, please don't. That app on my phone, knowing, because they've done it for me, that if I really need to talk, you guys will jump on and talk to me. And, it just brings hope. But I could explain that to someone not living this life and they think I'm nuts. Yeah, just the app. I'm like, yeah, just the app. Cause I know what's behind the app is a bunch of parents like me going, I can't take any more of this. So then you combine that with the situation with my little girl, and it's like no matter what I do, my day is going to have one heartache or the other, and trying to garner understanding. Mick, because he loves me, takes the time out and he listens, and he does his best to get in both ways, but the one where I know he knows the pain is because he's been through what I'm going through. So we help each other in that regard, bringing support. So it's kind of like learning someone else's language, right? I mean, you, me, and him, Kindra, can speak the same language because we have the same heart that's been damaged. And so, I would say again, referring back to these men that came out of the woodwork over the last several years who didn't have to, but prayed with me, that recognized that this guy needs help. And the only thing I can do is pat him on the back and tell him to keep going. And, that kind of stuff that it's not little things. So he caught me. The Lord caught me as I was falling every which way that I never expected. And so now, as I'm trying to come up with tips, it's just like you said too, be patient with yourself. I do still do. I go down the wrong road and realize like, yeah, make a U-turn, dude. This is not the way to handle it. It's not going to work. But I'm getting better at not going down the wrong road. And it happens, but it's a discipline. It's like anything else. Mix real discipline with what he eats and he walks all the. I wish I was more like that. Need to get more like that. But internally, I'm disciplined with my thoughts and my frame of mind, and where I try to center everything around an eternal point of view. I can't stress that enough because it's too painful to take it to that. And I have a choice. And there's times I cave in when I just feel sorry for myself, and I just feel like it's not even sorry. For myself, it's just to hurt. I allow myself to feel it. And I empty the tears, and then I realize like, well, I can get stuck again, or I can just get back up and keep trusting. And and then I do. I can't afford to have too many down times. I've got another young
right.
one here that needs me to do everything. So, you know, I don't have the luxury of taking a vacation from this. And nobody does. So I hope that makes sense. I don't know if I'm
It
helping, but
does. It makes a lot of sense. And I think as we wrap up here, I think this is a good lead in to what I want you to talk about. I think it here at the end, and Mick alluded to it, but you mentioned allowing yourself to feel it,
Yeah.
and people express it different ways. And you wrote a song.
Yes. Yeah.
You
It
tell
was the
us about
last yeah, it was the last song I wrote. I have
I mean, this is hard.
I
Thank
have
you
my good I
for
have
writing.
my good I have my guitar right next to my bed. I'm being nudged to pick it up. Not ready.
And we also recorded it, and we have it as well too. And this is what I was thinking about trying to get some sort of expression or out. I mean, so my outlet was writing. So I wrote a novel on the situation. Mike wrote a song, but I think this is something that people have to think about in terms of physically. So that might be working out, that might be yoga, that might be prayer, that might be a song, it might be writing, whatever it is. But it's whatever that thing that's within you, it does need to come out, it needs to be expressed, and so,
Yeah.
we're waiting for Kindra's book as well too, because these are
Right.
these are things that people need to hear about. We
Yeah.
all feel very alone, we all feel very, very isolated, but we need to also to express it, and it's a
And
human thing.
Yeah.
I think it's healing too, right? And Mike, I think that's probably helped in your situation and coming closer with God is that healing and letting that out and allowing yourself to feel it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no as you can see, I mean, it's just part of the journey. And so I know that my tears bring other people to a place where it's okay for them to cry. I mean, it's okay. You gotta be human. It's a beautiful thing that we are who we are. And we can lean into God, but we're still gonna be as human as ever. It's just, you know, it's just part of the journey. So I guess, to like summarize, you know, I look forward to the day when I can express myself again through songwriting. Not there yet, but God understands that. And I want to get back to it. I miss it. It's always been my way of journaling my life. And, it's helped other people, they tell me along the way. So, I mean, it's a huge piece that I want to get back to. That's for sure. And it's a healing thing. So when I get to that point, I'll send you the next song. But,
Well,
for
we are
now,
looking forward to it.
yeah,
Give yourself grace, right? It's seasons. We go through
yeah,
seasons. Give yourself some grace. And
yeah,
yeah, I heard your first song and I know you're getting a little emotional and I also got emotional when I heard it and I knew I would. So I made
yeah,
sure I listened to
yeah,
it
yeah,
um in a place of private so I could get emotional.
yeah,
Mm, But I
yeah,
think the big thing is letting you know or letting your daughter know if she ever hears this that you love her, you miss her,
yeah,
and you hope to have a relationship with her that's closer than what you have right now.
yeah. She knows that. I know she knows that. I hold her with my eyes. We hold each other. There's times in our FaceTime we're just connected,
Mhm.
and it happens quite often, and I'm so grateful for that. She knows. She's got my heart. She's just a mini me in every which way. I have a 41-year-old daughter soon to be, and she's the business mini me. She's like me. She's not like me. She's kind of cold-blooded, but in terms of business, when you're in your 40s, I remember this with my parents, we're talking about them. I remember thinking, "Yeah, they're really not that bright." And so that's how I get talked to now. And so she's already referring to me when I go into a nursing home. I said, "That's okay, you can keep thinking that, but I'll run away and you'll find me at a park bench on the beach because 'cause I'm not going." So, you know what I mean? It's kinda like weird to anyway, so, your kids, your DNA's in them. Your children, they're part of you, and so you know, they're gonna have those gifts that you have too, and so I think they'll all circle back to us at
Yep,
some point sooner than later, right?
yep.
But I know my little girl, she gets it. I make her laugh. She loves it. We just have fun. I wanted to share this is a scripture that's on. By the way, what I did can afford a 3-bedroom. So my room, I turned into my little girl's room and it's decorated like a little girl's room. So she knows she has her own room. And when she comes to visit, she just takes over. And, I get asked, can you take the camera in? I want to see my toys. And so, I just thought, Lord nudged me to do that. Like, you have a place in my home always and forever. And someday I hope to have the ability to have 3 bedrooms. You know,
Right.
I don't
Right.
mind. This is on the wall right above.
California, you're lucky to live where you're at.
uh,
It's
what? Yeah, this is from Proverbs 31:25. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. And that reminds me of my little girl. There's no fear in her of the future. I don't have fear for her. I know that God's got her, and I know she's going to be everything that He created her to be. And I trust that, no matter what, we will be eternally connected in heaven someday. And, I'm just proud to be her dad, no matter what the court says, no matter what her mom says. That's who I am. God gave me her as a gift, and children are a blessing no matter what. So she blesses me every day, whether she's here or not. Thank you guys for this opportunity. I don't know if you choose to use this, go ahead. But if it's like, hey, the guy broke down, don't use it. I mean, whatever.
No, I think being transparent and emotional is part of this. And
Yeah,
I just want to say thank you, Mick, for sharing Mike with us.
yeah, yeah,
And thank you for sharing your story, Mike.
yeah.
That's
You're
huge.
you're
You will.
welcome. Yeah, well, that was the goal. So thank you guys again for the opportunity. I love you, and I mean you too, Kindra. I thought, man, if there could be like the female version of a Mick, because you're so smart and empathetic, you might edge him out with, like the smart. I'm just kidding. Um,
No, he's definitely smarter than I am.
he's so he's so like, how do you store all that knowledge, dude? Like, just give me like a tenth of that. But that's why I love him. But thank you guys again, and God
Ultimate
bless.
duo, right? We balance each other very well.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yes.
It's a great dynamic duo. I'm telling you, bro. All right. Well, thank you, and my prayers are with you always.
Yep.
Thanks, brother Mike. Appreciate it. Be
See ya.
well. All
Take
right.
care.
Thanks. Well, that was pretty awesome and pretty emotional. Like, I know the story, but I hope it blessed other people because this is a guy that's really been through the ringer. And when it came down to actually my novel, I set it aside for many, many years. But actually, Mike was a direct inspiration because almost to a T, the same exact thing happened to him. And I said, I got this story. Like, why am I sitting on it? And that's actually what provoked me to say I got to publish the story. But that's great. And hopefully, it's helped people to hear what his story and what he has been through. And also, I guess we have something else to offer. Is that right, Kindra? One of us is a juvenile delinquent, and one of us is a what is a jailbird? What's going
Jail?
on?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is which, right?
Yeah, which is which is always a question. But in any case, contact us at the aftermath. And what we can do is send that out to you. And of course, Mike had made a reference to his song. We actually got a copy of that too, if you want to hear what he has written, because it's a pretty awesome song as well. But in any case, thanks for tuning in and thanks for listening to the aftermath. If you have somebody who would like to be a guest, by all means, let us know and keep listening, liking, subscribing, and sharing and how much you like us on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, take care. Deus Volt.